Welcome to Headliners Forum. We're here to bring you the best in Texas journalism, the stories behind the great stories. I'm your host, Mark Morrison. Our special guest is Alan Scaia of KRLD Radio Dallas. He won this year's Charles Green Award, honoring the state's best radio reporter for 2021. This award is presented annually by the Headliners Foundation of Austin in partnership with the Texas Managing Editors. Alan, congratulations and thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you. It's good to be here.
Your reports cover a broad range of subjects. Tell us a little about your background and your role at KRLD.
Well, I'm a general assignment reporter at KRLD, and the way that I got involved is back in college. I went to Ball State in Indiana, and in college, I knew I wanted to be I knew I wanted to go into journalism, but I didn't necessarily know how I wanted to do it. And they just sort of guided everybody toward the TV station. And I didn't care for TV. It's, it was like we would just do one thing all day. And so my academic advisor he was also the news director of the NPR station on campus. And I told him, I'm kind of thinking of changing my major to print journalism. And he said, well, if you don't like TV, I've got, I need a weekend anchor on the NPR station. And that's just kind of how I got started in the radio. And I liked it because you could go more from event to event instead of just focusing on one thing all day. And also we could move more quick. We could adjust more quickly when there is some breaking story.
Right. And
it seemed less like theater.
Yeah. It's interesting to me looking over your website and listening to your stories that basically you've the addition of having multi-platform lets you really compete well with the other media out there and give people a lot of information in a very straightforward way. One of the stories that you impressed the judges with was a series of reports on a shooting at a school in South Arlington. Tell us about that assignment and getting it on the air.
I remember hearing things. I was at I think Timberview High School, and when we start hearing about, and that's one of the things too that I think is important is I think a lot of times reporters want to make a phone call, and it's like my thing is like I want to go out and go to the thing that's happening, because you'll get a quicker response that way. And that's one of the things I always try to do is like I can make calls on my way, like while I'm driving to something, and get background information, or my editors can tell me, hey, here's what we're hearing, here's where the media staging area is going to be. And so the morning of Timberview, when we started getting calls that there had been a shooting there, I remember pulling up. Timberview is right on a major freeway through Arlington, and I pulled off on one of the side roads, and some of the TV stations were starting to show up too. And being there and trying to piece together, because you had students who were leaving the school, and so they were giving you firsthand accounts, and that's important too, because you're not necessarily going to get a lot of information from a PIO right then, and also that gives you a background that you can use to tell people, hey, Highway 360 is shut down right now because of the police presence. That affects in radio. Traffic is that's one of our big things, but then also being able to give people at least some background is here's here's what I'm seeing right now. Here are kids leaving. We don't have details from police yet, but kids are leaving the school. We're getting messages from the school district saying this is where we are. This is where we're sending the kids. This is where you can pick them up. This is what we need to know right now. And so we can give people that immediate information. I think that's where radio still excels.
Right. And you're on the way out to a scene like this. You don't really have a good grip yet on the ramifications of the shooting. How many people were involved, whether people were killed, and all of that. And it was interesting to me that it seemed like you were going out of your way not to get ahead of this story or to be sensational with your work. Can you talk about your approach to that?
Yeah, that's one of those too, is that you're not necessarily going to know everything that's happening right then. And so instead of guessing and speculating, um, what you can do is tell people, we're working on this information now. Like here's what we know. Here's what we're trying to find out. And one of the challenges in Arlington was that the school district, uh, that was an Arlington ISD school, but it was in the city of Mansfield, and so it was actually two different cities who had to work together on this. And so it was Mansfield police who were leading the investigation, and so that kind of threw another wrench into it too, is that you had a couple of different cities who had to work together.
Right. And as it turned out, there were several students injured, but I believe there were no fatalities, fortunately, in this particular incident. How did you follow up on it?
That's one where it's important because as you have relationships with police departments too, they don't want you to speculate, and you have to understand what police departments will tell you. Sometimes they will not tell you things because it will be part of their investigation. And so you don't necessarily want to blurt out everything you hear, because that may affect an investigation down the line. If they say this were to wind up before a jury someday, that they would be able to, they would say, well, the gunman, the radio was reporting he was a guy with blonde hair, but you see my client has dark hair, and so police are very careful about what information they release to the media. And so it can be frustrating to not always get all of your questions answered. But I think if you have good relationships with the police, you'll understand why they might tell you something and might not tell you something else.
Right. So you also covered a disturbing story about a 26-year-old man who was arrested for marijuana possession, and then he ended up dying in the Collin County jail, I believe. What did you report to your listeners about this story? That was certainly one where the police probably were a little reluctant to chat with you.
Yeah, and that's another good example where we didn't necessarily have all the details initially. We just knew what had happened, and I was thinking back to that. Initially, we knew there had been a death at the jail, and so we were able to report that. And then, as we did get more of that information, like once we got the video, the surveillance video that they had, and we saw how they react, and even then, it's important. Like we don't say, well, the police did this and this and this, they did it wrong. You just say, this is what we see on the video. And it's important not to assign blame. It's important not to jump to a conclusion. It's just to say, this is what is on the video.
Yeah. What
And
was the aftermath?
Multimedia, that helps too, where you can say, you can look at the video yourself. We've got the video up on our website. And once the information came in, that's when we started learning more about what had actually happened.
Right. So, what was the aftermath of that story? There was a subsequent investigation, and were any of the law enforcement officials found to have done anything wrong, or what was the outcome?
Yes, I'm spacing on the exact specifics of like how the jail workers were punished, but I know that there's been changes in policy at the jail, and that's something too. Is that it's one thing to cover an individual event, but it's another thing where you need to follow up on a story to let people let people know what changes will result, what will change as a result of what happened. Instead of just saying, here's the guy who died at the jail, say, here's what the jail is going to do differently so the same thing doesn't happen again.
We like to share the views of news professionals such as yourself with journalism students across the state. What is attractive about a radio news career these days, and how can a student best prepare for this field?
Radio's tough because radio is changing very rapidly. And so I would say, like, for a kid who's just getting started, if you start to gravitate toward it, maybe don't think of it just as radio. Everybody has a podcast now. And so, like, our company, Odyssey Media, formerly Entercom, is really focused on developing podcasts now. And so we do that too at 1080. Like, we're 1080, listen to us on 1080 KRLD, but also download all our newscasts. We post them online, we post them on our app. Download our podcasts. We have several different ones in like sort of like a feature, like Beyond the Headlines is what it's called. We have another one where people can just ask us a question about something they were wondering about, and we call that North Texas Wants to Know. And so I would say for a kid who's coming up now, maybe you like audio and video, but maybe don't think of it as just a radio or a TV career. Think of it as an on-demand option.
Right. So it's really get your basic reporting skills and learn how to operate on different platforms. And radio being one of the areas that stayed very strong despite some of the competition in the media field. Alan Scaia, thank you for sharing your reporting experiences with us. Former AP radio managing editor Bill McCloskey, the judge in this contest, complimented your comprehensive reporting of fast-breaking stories, providing vital information to listeners. Congratulations on your great work and your Headliners Award.
Thank you. It was an honor.
On our site, you can link to some of Alan's outstanding work and to interviews with other award-winning Texas journalists. For my colleague and Headliners Forum producer, Gary Pickle, I'm Mark Morrison.